Imagine a vast continent where hundreds of distinct cultures, each with its own unique customs and beliefs, weave a rich tapestry of stories. This is the essence of North American or Native American mythology, a sprawling collection of narratives told by countless peoples across North America. Why are these myths so diverse? Because they arise from different environments, with each society adapting its mythology to the land and life around them. Each tale reflects not only the culture but the very nature of the place where it was born. Like myths worldwide, Native American stories seek to answer the timeless questions. How was the world created? How did we, as humans, come to be? What is the significance of our rituals, ceremonies, and connection to higher powers? Picture a time over 20,000 years ago when our ancestors faced icy expanses and a land bridge connecting what is now northeastern Asia to Alaska. This was Beringia, a frozen passage linking two worlds. But why did these early people cross it? They were hunter-gatherers, likely following the footsteps of the game they depended on. Archaeological and genetic evidence reveals that around 23,000 years ago, a group of Homo sapiens reached Beringia. However, they couldn't venture further due to the impenetrable ice. The story was paused there at the edge of a continent they would one day call home. Modern DNA research adds another layer to this ancient story, illuminating a path that traces back to Asia as the origin of Native American populations. These early explorers crossed Beringia, not as conquerors, but as resilient survivors seeking new opportunities. When did this great migration finally break through? About 15,000 years ago, when the ice began to melt, opening a corridor into the uncharted lands of North America. Can you imagine being part of a nomadic group, trekking into a world teeming with wildlife, where every step was a journey into the unknown? In 2007, archaeologists uncovered a secret hidden deep within an underground cave on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The remains of a teenage girl, now known as Naia. Dated to be about 12,000 to 13,000 years old, her DNA held the story of an Asian origin, of a journey across Beringia, and a life lived on the cusp of ancient history. These migrations didn't occur as massive waves of people, but in small family groups or clans, moving at a pace dictated by the hunt for food. What routes did they take? Some followed the interior, while others likely traced the Pacific coastline before venturing further inland. The most widely accepted theory suggests these early nomads traveled along the eastern flank of the Rocky Mountains, dispersing across the continent, from the northern reaches down into Mesoamerica and even South America. Imagine stepping onto a new continent, where for millions of years animals and plants had thrived undisturbed. The abundance of food would have been astonishing, creating a land of plenty for the first human settlers. In 1968, the discovery of a nearly 13,000-year-old boy's skeleton in Montana revealed a fascinating link through DNA. His lineage connected ancient peoples across North and South America to their Beringian origins. What does this suggest? A shared heritage that spread far and wide, forging bonds across vast distances. The Clovis culture, distinguished by its uniquely crafted spear points, emerges around this time. These spearheads, found scattered throughout North America, are among the earliest signs of human settlement. But not all was straightforward. Recent discoveries in southern Chile at a site known as El Monte suggest human habitation possibly as far back as 15,000 years ago, raising questions about the timeline of migration. Imagine facing down a mammoth, spear in hand. The Clovis Spearheads, the oldest type found in North America, were specifically designed for hunting megafauna like mammoths and mastodons. As the climate changed, these massive creatures disappeared, leaving behind only their bones and the tools crafted to hunt them. But what did this mean for the nomads who had followed these animals for generations? About 10,000 years ago, these early travelers began to spread from the foothills of the Rockies across the vast plains to the Atlantic. Some groups ventured southward before returning north, and among these were likely the Cherokee, who once traveled as far as Mexico before retracing their steps. Can you imagine the stories that echoed through generations of lands seen and paths traveled? These journeys were not just migrations, they were the living stories that would become the foundation of a continent's mythology. What do we truly know about the ancient migrations of Native Americans? So much of it is still an educated guess, a blend of linguistic clues, cultural connections, and archaeological evidence. But one thing is clear. However they traveled, these peoples ended up inhabiting some of the most diverse environments on the planet. Imagine the impact that would have on their societies. Depending on the landscape, tribes were either nomadic hunters, constantly on the move, or settled communities that farmed the land. How do you think such different ways of life shaped their cultural evolution, and, by extension, their myths? Imagine the Inuit, carving out a life in the harsh Arctic, while tribes near the Great Lakes thrived as skilled hunters in the dense forests. As we move to the northeast of what is now the United States and into southeastern Canada, we see tribes establishing nearly permanent villages, cultivating the land. How did they learn to farm? Possibly from the influence of other cultures further south. When European explorers arrived, these communities were already harvesting pumpkins, beans, and maize, showcasing an agricultural expertise that was finely tuned to the rhythms of the seasons. Further south, tribes like the Cherokee, Natchez, and Creek had developed even more sophisticated farming techniques. Why? They may have been inspired by practices from Mesoamerica, where agriculture was an art as much as a necessity. On the vast plains, life took on a different rhythm. Tribes spent winters in sturdy earth lodges, but when summer came, they moved into tipis, homes that could be quickly assembled and taken down as they followed the roaming bison. Can you feel the pulse of a life so deeply connected to the movements of the herds? Imagine life on the northwestern coast of North America. Here, tribes thrived not through farming, but through the rich bounty of the sea. Salmon, seals, sea lions, these were the lifeblood of communities who also gathered berries, nuts, and other plants from the land. In this world, agriculture was unnecessary. The ocean was their garden. In stark contrast, consider the ancient farming cultures that arose in what are now Utah and Colorado. These societies built a thriving agricultural civilization, only to see it collapse in the 12th and 13th centuries when drought struck. The same drought pushed plains tribes to raid villages and drove people to settle in fortified pueblos perched atop mesas. Can you picture the scene? Villagers scaling cliffs to their mesa-top homes, while the dry wind carried dust from the parched land below. Amidst these diverse lifestyles, there were common threads that wove together Native American mythology across the continent. One theme shines above all: nature. For these cultures, the world was alive, and everything within it, whether living or inanimate, had a spirit. What if you saw the world that way? Where a mountain was not just a mass of rock, but a being with a story, where the wind whispered ancient wisdom, and where the river sang its history to all who would listen. This spiritual worldview is what historians call animism. It permeated every aspect of life and shaped the stories told across generations. And what did these stories aim to explain? They were more than just tales. They were the key to understanding the mysteries of existence. Creation myths spoke not only of how the world and humans came to be, but of the origins of animals, plants, and sacred foods like maize. Each story was a thread in a vast web of meaning, connecting people to the land, to the animals, and to the very essence of life itself. Can you see how mythology was not just a collection of old stories for Native Americans? It was a living, breathing part of everyday life, a way to make sense of the world and their place in it. Their myths reveal a profound respect for nature, an understanding that everything around them was interconnected and sacred. This is not just history, it's a legacy that continues to inspire. So, what can we learn from these ancient stories today? Perhaps that the line between the natural and the supernatural is not so clear, and that every stone, tree, and river may still have a story to tell. Imagine a world where the most vital food is not just a crop, but a living part of the culture itself. Maize, corn, wasn't merely sustenance for Native American societies. It was the very essence of life. How did this humble plant come to hold such a central role? The stories are as varied as the landscapes they come from, yet they all share a profound reverence for maize. Among them, the Cherokee myth from the southeastern United States stands out with its vivid imagery and deeper meanings. Let's journey back to around 3000 BCE when people in the American Southwest began settling into permanent villages. What allowed them to stay in one place? Maize. This remarkable crop first made its appearance in the southwestern regions, introduced from the Mesoamerican cultures who were the original cultivators of maize. By around 2100 BCE, maize had reached areas like New Mexico and eastern Arizona, transforming the way of life there. Before the world as we know it took shape, there was a hunter named Kanati, Lucky Hunter, and his wife Selu, Maize. They lived with their son in a time when the bounty was always plentiful. Every day, Kanati returned from the forest with fresh game, while Selu prepared the meat by the river. But one day, their son noticed something curious, a boy who emerged from the river to play with him. This mysterious boy, unlike any he had seen before, piqued the family's curiosity. The boy from the river had questions. Why was Kanati always so successful in his hunts? He persuaded Kanati and Selu's son to follow his father into the woods. There, they witnessed Kanati move a large stone, revealing a cave from which a deer emerged. Kanati quickly shot it with an arrow, closing the cave once more. Inspired by what they saw, the two boys tried it themselves another day. But this time, they left the cave open, allowing all the animals to escape into the forest. Suddenly, the endless abundance was gone. Now, the family would have to hunt for their food. When they returned home that night, Selu had no meat to prepare. Hungry, the boys asked for food, and Selu promised to fetch some maize and beans. What they saw next amazed and frightened them. She rubbed her stomach to fill a basket halfway with corn, and rubbed her armpits to fill the rest with beans. Convinced she was a witch, the boys plotted to kill her. Selu, sensing their intentions, told them that after her death, they should clear a plot of land and drag her body around it 7 times. Wherever her blood fell, maize would grow. The next day, a lush field of corn stood before their home. Can you imagine standing in that field, feeling the sacred gift that came at such a price? Further south, among the Mikasuki people in Florida, another maize story unfolds, a tale that brings together the themes of transformation and sacrifice. 2 brothers living with their grandmother grew weary of eating only meat and asked for different food. To their surprise, the grandmother served them maize, but she would never reveal its source. Driven by curiosity, the younger brother spied on her and saw her rubbing the maize out of her own body. Horrified by the discovery, the brothers refused to eat the corn again. Heartbroken, the grandmother told them that because they had learned her secret, she had to leave forever. Yet she promised that even in her absence, she would live on through the maize growing from her grave. What an image! Maize sprouting from the very earth that held the body of their grandmother, nourishing the family for generations to come. In the northeastern United States, the Penobscot people tell a similar tale of sacrifice and renewal. When the first mother saw that her family was struggling to find enough game, she made a painful decision. She told her husband that the only solution was for her to die. Her sons would then drag her body across a cleared plot of land until there was nothing left but bones, which they would bury in the center of the field. She instructed them to return in 7 months to see the result. And when they did, the field was covered with maize. Their mother's sacrifice had not been in vain. She had given them the gift of sustenance, along with a crucial lesson: always save some seed for the future. Her sacrifice transformed scarcity into abundance, and just like in the Cherokee myth, maize became a substitute for the wild game that was once plentiful. These myths are not just stories. They're reflections of a deep relationship between people and the land. Maize was more than a crop. It was a sacred gift, a living embodiment of sacrifice and renewal. Through the myths of the Cherokee, Mikasuki, and Penobscot, we see a common theme emerge: transformation through loss, the idea that from sacrifice comes life. So, what does maize represent today? It's not just a staple food, but a symbol of resilience and the cycle of life. These ancient stories remind us that even in hardship, there is the potential for growth. They invite us to imagine the world where the spirits of plants and animals lived alongside humans, where every field of maize whispered the echoes of a myth as old as time itself. When we think about the origins of the world, we often imagine grand tales of creation, epic battles, cosmic forces, and divine beings. But in Native North American mythology, while there are countless stories about the origin of maize, tales of how the world itself was created are fewer, and they all orbit around the mysterious power of the Great Spirit. Can you picture a world where everything is guided by a singular spiritual force? The Great Spirit may be the ultimate power behind all things, but it is the mighty gods and cultural heroes who shape the world, battling chaos and bringing order to existence. The sun, the stars, the earth itself, summer and winter, rain and wind, thunder and lightning, each have their origins, and they are often brought to life through personified gods or extraordinary beings, even tricksters who are known for their playful and cunning ways. Native North American myths tell of two main paths to creation. The first, and by far the most common, is the earth diver myth. Imagine the scene. A vast primordial ocean stretches as far as the eye can see, and the world as we know it is yet to be formed. It is often a humble creature, perhaps a turtle, a beaver, or even a muskrat, that dives into the depths of the dark, churning waters. What does it seek? Mud. It swims down and down into the mysterious depths until it finds the mud that will become the earth itself. The creature struggles back to the surface, bearing its precious cargo, and from that small handful of mud, the world is shaped. Can you picture a world being born from such a humble beginning? Some stories even say that the earth rests upon the back of a great turtle, its shell supporting forests, rivers, and mountains. This image is particularly prevalent in the myths of the woodland peoples. The land beneath your feet, the ground you walk on every day, it all began with a single, brave dive. The second path to creation in Native North American mythology is the Emergence myth. Here, the world is not brought up from the depths, but rather climbed up through the layers. Imagine a series of worlds stacked on top of each other like layers of an onion, but hidden beneath the Earth's surface. At the very bottom, beings begin their journey in darkness, crawling upwards through each level. With each ascent, they transform, becoming more and more human as they climb, until they finally reach the surface, the world we inhabit today. Can you imagine the struggle, the determination needed to rise through each realm, pushing ever closer to the light of this world? The Emergence myth is not just about the creation of the earth. It's a story of transformation, of becoming. And when the beings finally emerge into the light of our world, they spread out across the land, filling it with life. In both these myths, the world may take shape in different ways, but one thing remains constant: the guiding presence of the Great Spirit. It is this spiritual force that grants power to the gods, to the sun and the stars, to the winds and the rain. Even tricksters with their mischief and pranks play a role in shaping the world, teaching us that creation is not always a straightforward or serious matter. Imagine the forces of nature not as distant, indifferent elements, but as living, breathing entities. The wind is not just a breeze, but a spirit moving through the world. The sun is not just a source of light, but a god radiating life itself. In these stories, nature is alive with meaning, and the world is filled with a sense of interconnectedness. These creation myths are more than just stories. They are reflections of the people who told them, of their relationship with the land, the animals, and the forces that shaped their lives. The Earth Diver myth teaches us about humility, about finding the extraordinary in the simplest of things. The Emergence myth reminds us that transformation is a journey, a struggle to reach the light. And through it all, the Great Spirit and the gods stand as symbols of the interconnectedness of life, the sacred bond between the natural and the supernatural. In our next lesson on North American mythology, We'll journey to the icy northernmost regions of America to uncover the extraordinary myths of the Inuit. What secrets do their stories hold about survival in such unforgiving landscapes? How do their legends reflect the unique connection between their people and the Arctic wilderness? We'll explore their rich tapestry of myths, tales that blend the spiritual and the natural, where animals speak, spirits roam, and the harsh beauty of the tundra comes alive. Don't miss this chance to delve deeper into a mythology unlike any other. Remember to subscribe to the Academy of History and Culture to continue expanding your understanding of the world's diverse and captivating mythologies. Thank you for now. See you next time.